So we thought we would have an open discussion, and this is to encompass the last 2 days, not to evolve into a vaccine debate again, to be very clear about that. But I'm also a bit troubled by one of the populations we really didn't spend much time on, and that's our transplant and most immunocompromised groups. And I know Fariba's done some great work in that, and Janice has as well, and that's been sort of a neglected part of this series today. And that population continues to grow yearly. Just wanted to invite one or both of you to give any comments about sort of the unmet challenges in those particular patient populations.
It's Fariba Donovan from University of Arizona. As George mentioned, as time goes on and our population gets slightly older, especially in Arizona, a lot of people who move to Arizona are older population. Quite a significant percentage of population are people who are with autoimmune disease. Part of the reason they come to warmer climate is because of that. And significant number of them nowadays start on these new biologic agents that are magical medications, certainly for them, changing their life, truly make them come back to walking and being able to do their daily activities. On the side is that all of these medications have side effects, and one of them is obviously increasing the risk of infections. And of course, in Arizona, valley fever becomes the top of the list. So in every day that I'm in the clinic, half of my patient population are people who are sent from rheumatology, dermatology, gastroenterology offices, being screened to be started on one or another biologic response modifiers, and getting a screen for cocci, and of course it's positive, so then now we don't know what to do. So part of our proposal in our study submitted to NIH was to study this population, and as part of the proposal we wanted to develop a larger biorepository of these patients and their blood, and look at the adaptive immunity in these people, to see actually who may be more at risk, people who did not have immunity. And then by categorizing the patient, actually make those groups that are at higher risk maybe the first potential group that are eligible for a vaccine that hopefully will be available. So this is not a problem that's going to go away. It's going to only get larger. We do need funding to actually do these studies. Patients definitely need our help. And, we have people who come and say, you tell me not to take my Humira, but I'll be living on my wheelchair. How can I say don't do that, And if they don't, and if they do start these medications, we know that they are at higher risk of valley fever. Our studies show that the risk of disseminated cocci is 2.4-fold higher in patients who are on biologics, and not one specific group. Most of them were TNF-alpha inhibitors. So I think at this point, we all have to make a special effort to do these studies and come with a plan of management. What is our answer for patients who ask me what to do? At this point, a lot of these patients go on both. So they are on biologic response modifiers with a lot of side effects, and then we put them on fluconazole with their own side effects. So now then I have to follow these people again, talking about healthcare utilization, frequent visits, and of course they are at risk for other infections as well. So I think we all have to remember, and this is only one group of the immunocompromised host I'm talking about. We have large transplant population. And I'm going to let Janice talk about this. Right now, our institution at least cover these patients who do have a positive test before the transplantation. They go on fluconazole and they stay on fluconazole for a whole year. Remembering that if somebody goes on kidney transplant or any transplant, they are on 2 or 3 immunosuppressant that has significant drug-drug interaction with these medication. Do we really need that long of an antifungal agent? How much of it is good enough? Do we have to stop it? When we stop, and if we stop, are they at higher risk? Really, these are very major questions that none of us have any answer for. We try, and hopefully we can keep at it and continue our hard work, and maybe we'll have better answers soon.
So, yeah, Janice, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I completely agree with Dr. Donovan that the immunosuppressed population is only growing. We have transplant populations now in the tens of thousands living in Arizona, and the time in the transplant where they are most vulnerable to acquiring coccidioidomycosis is typically in the first year when their anti-rejection medications are very high. And then if they have to have any bolus of immunosuppressives because of acute rejection later on. And the only way we have been able to have any control over this fungus and have a thriving and very large transplant program at Mayo Clinic is through chronic azole use, which I think George very eloquently went over yesterday, just how, it seems like, oh yeah, very well tolerated, but when you have to have it every single day and your hair's falling out and your skin is dry and your nails hurt and everything it becomes very difficult. So I think ultimately a vaccine to address this exquisitely sensitive population would be, I know I'm singing to the choir, but here is another group that we didn't hear about so much in this meeting, whether, we would have to figure out if the best timing of that is pre all that immunosuppression or after the immunosuppression levels go down when there is some time that we can vaccinate them. There's a lot of things that could work out, but an exquisitely sensitive population who I know would love to get off fluconazole.
All right, so we have lots of time for discussion. Do I want to? George keeps pushing this the species idea. I think he's asked the question multiple times.
I have been so irritated by the renaming of Candida. I feel it's our obligation to repay the field.
Yeah, as Marcus suggested, I think that there's good reason to think that there are very important differences between isolates in Texas, Mexico, and South America versus Arizona. So, I would propose Coccidioides arizonensis.
That would be fine.
Coccidioides carabinensis. No, I can't name it after myself. Yeah, carabinensis, and we could keep Posidossii for South America because that would be the origin of Alejandro Posadas. Yeah. So I can throw that out there and see how it flies.
This is a good time. Everyone's tired, so
yeah. Comments from the peanut gallery, I think, is what we could call this part of the session.
Yeah.
2 species is already too many. So, GR John Ricks here.
Yep.
So, may I?
Of course, yeah, go ahead, John.
So I wanted to take a moment to thank Catherine and Senator Kelly for the work they have been doing. Everybody needs to really appreciate the magnitude of the effort over the past decade to engage at political and broadly finance minister levels on the question of how do you incentivize for new antimicrobials. The Pasteur Act, which I hope you've all heard of, is about antibacterials and antifungal compounds. And Forward definitely fits right in there with that, and we'd love to see both of them get passed. And so I first want to say again, Catherine, thank you for being here. But I'm John Rex, and I have been pushing on this area for a decade. And for those of you who don't subscribe to the AMR.Solutions newsletter, please do that right now, AMR.Solutions. It's free. Welcome Trust supports it so that we can carry this message around the world, and you will find newsletters about things that you can do today or tomorrow, depending on after dinner, to support Congress. And and it includes things like calling the offices of your congressperson, your House representative, your senator. And, Catherine, what can we do to help you? I mean, that's really my question. How can we as a community help you? Because I recognize political reality. I know that these things have to get attached to something else and make it through. And we're all rooting for you. And it's above my pay grade to know how to get it done. So I'm glad you're there. What can we do to help you?
Well, thank you. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the suggestion to make calls. I think the number of people probably in this building that would have understood what even an antimicrobial is a few years ago has probably grown dramatically. And so you all are doing a lot of what you need to do, translating this for us into terms that our bosses and my colleagues as staff can understand. But, the leadership has to know this is a priority for so many people across the country, and individual members of Congress need to hear the pressure from their constituents to raise it with leadership. So I think you're exactly right, calling, emails, education work that must continue. I think, like you said, we're a lot closer to the Pasteur Act getting attached to something at the end of this year, whether it's the National Defense Authorization Act or the final end of year funding bill, or if we end up with those as one bill. But, that's only one part of, I think, what we're all most interested in. So the Forward Act will probably remain, and we will hopefully be able to build this broad tent of stakeholders that are interested in it, just like folks are interested, such a broad swath of organizations and stakeholders are interested in Pasteur. I think the Forward Act is a little less well known because Valley fever is not as well known, though the New York Times, I think, is doing its part to change that. I really enjoyed the diagnosis column, but I think continuing to bang the drum and raise this to your Congress people will continue to be incredibly important.
Yeah, and the main thing I've learned is that this is a multi-year effort.
Yes,
you have to educate.
very much so.
You have to, because there are lots of other folks out there who have something that they want legislation about. And in order for your bit to make progress, you've got to keep talking about it. So I would say, again, thank you. It's very kind of you to join the meeting today. And I'm just going to tell Senator Kelly, thank you.
Oh, thank you. He suggested putting a photo of his dog in the press release. So this is personal to him. He's excited.
Fantastic. Okay, GR, thank you. Thanks for letting me make that comment. It's really important.
No, appreciate it. Thanks, John. Other comments? Questions? Yeah, Rob?
So, Rob Purdy from the Valley Fever Institute in Bakersfield. I'm also a Valley Fever patient, as probably most of you know. I've made a couple comments, but I wanted to share something, and I wanted to thank Freba Donovan for some comments that she made as well yesterday, talking about the importance of awareness for physicians. You can have the best test, but if the doctors don't know to order it, it's not going to get ordered, and that involves education and awareness. And as far as new diagnostics, there's also an aspect of that. I've talked to some researchers that submitted SBIRs for new diagnostics, and some of the feedback that came back is there a path to a commercial need for this product? So increased testing, increased awareness among physicians can help support that, and it can do it now. There's also issues with vaccines, and I can tell you We do have, and we are doing some basic surveys in our community about vaccines and interest in vaccines in our community. And awareness in that case has shown that among those who are aware of valley fever, the interest in vaccines in the very small subset of our population, Spanish-speaking population, 80% interest in a valley fever vaccine. Kern County in California had the lowest COVID vaccine uptake rates in the state. We did not get above 50, so interest around 80% in the Spanish-speaking market is huge. So I think that's another important aspect to raise. And, I'll always wonder what would happen if I had a diagnostic that was better, or a vaccine, or what I'd be doing right now, probably on a beach, or a drug that worked. If I wasn't dependent on amphotericin and posaconazole, even though they have major issues. So I think the importance of awareness and education and advocacy that comes out of that can't be understated. I've heard talk about the NDAA and BARDA, and both of those, and also a request for a $100 million check. So that's nothing that the NIH can give, but it is something that Congress can allocate to the NIH, in which case they can give it. I'd like to thank Senator Kelly for the efforts that he's making on forward and for discussing forward in past year. There's also other opportunities that will be available next year. There's some discussion about the NDAA. There's also potentially PAPA next year, which is the pandemic authorization that's up next year. So there was a lot of opportunity, but I think today and right now, I think going back to the basics of education among physicians and awareness among the public is something that can't be understated and can't be, enough of it can't be done.
Yeah, well said, Rob. There is an article that will be out in the Annals of Internal Medicine, I think next week, that's really a call for all states to make cocci reportable. So at least from an epi standpoint, that might at least get the ball rolling in the right direction to get better numbers. It makes a call for a few other things, but that should be out next week.
I actually wanted to let everybody know we are hosting cocci study group meeting next year, 2023 in Tucson, March 31st and April 1st. And I'm actually planning to have a panel of patients who do want to come and talk about their disease, to have at least an hour or two in the program whenever we think that's the best and most appropriate time for them to give us their story, because I think that's the most effective to show that what suffering they went through and how our help hopefully help them to come back to normal as it gets life. So just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the upcoming valley fever study group, coccidioidomycosis study group meeting. Yeah, so Ed?
Yeah, George and Bridget, we've had a great 2 days, great discussion, some of it passionate, some of it, a little more civil. What's our expectations from the Academy after meeting for 2 days and having, this great meeting? What can we as the audience expect as a deliverable? And George, as chair, what would make you look back at this meeting as being, a superb event, or what would be your expectation?
Yeah, so from my understanding, the result of this workshop will be sort of an abbreviated statement by the National Academy, and that obviously has serious funding implications because we're going to really write and call for certain areas to have dedicated interest, and with interest would obviously follow funding. And I think that we've outlined the major problems in the field. I think that the result of the National Academy workshop will sort of outline those in a more concrete way, and then may the best candidates win, in my opinion. I mean, I think that our job is not peer review, of course, but I think that's when the rubber meets the road. That's the hard part, right? I mean, a lot of people have very good ideas, and there's just not an infinite supply of money, and I'm certainly not in charge of any money, except what my teenagers think I have. So, I mean, that's the deliverable, is to outline and lay a strong foundation for these are the problems that we've identified and we think need the most priority, and then we'll see what happens.
Are there members of the Academy here that write the report? I'm a little confused about the process.
Do you want to speak to
Yeah.
that, Liz?
Yeah, absolutely. I can elucidate that. So, hi, I'm Liz Ashby, one of the organizers for this event. So, we at the National Academies do a lot of workshops just like this on an incredible variety of different topics. So, our job is to convene, to bring together experts, the best and the brightest, all of you in this room. And from there, we will bring on a science writer who is actually joining us today virtually, who is attending this workshop, who is going to write up a summary of the workshop, of all of the things that were discussed. And that is then going to be made publicly available. It will go through a process of peer review. All of our speakers will have an opportunity to review the section of the proceedings, the report that outlines their topic. And then from there, it will go through expert review, and then it will be publicly released. And also, all of the recordings from this session will be publicly available online for whoever wants to view them.
Timing? When will the report be available?
We're expecting it to be released about March.
John?
And so, also, though, do you bring this back to the committee that underwrote or, that approved this workshop internally within the academies? Is there any discussion about how well this workshop went, or any discussion about what the findings were? Is it just said it happened and
Yeah, so with the Academies, I feel like this is now a seminar on deliverables of the National Academies as a whole. But so the National Academies, to be brief, does have specific activities where experts get together and develop specific findings and conclusions and recommendations. This is not that activity. That's a much longer process where there's lots of deliberation and all of this. Our workshops are really just meant to be a convening space, a place for experts to get together and discuss things that are important. So the proceedings is going to just be a description of what was said in the workshop. I think we can all agree, there's been, great conclusion that we've all collectively reached. We haven't really deliberated on anything or come to some final, conclusion, but it's going to be a description of what was discussed and hopefully not a starting point, but a step to further a lot of the discussions that we've had. So to answer your question, the speakers, again, will be able to review their sessions for accuracy. So we'll ensure that, all of the statements are accurate as stated in the workshop, but no, it won't say that we collectively came to some great conclusion, as a body. Does that answer your question?
not quite. So this workshop was approved by the Committee on World Health, was it? On Global Health. And does, on a future meeting of the Committee on Global Health, when they put together an agenda, have as an agenda item a report back to the committee, not the report itself, but a conversation about what happened, what was discussed, or whether it was you see what I'm saying? I mean, internally, there was a reason they thought we convinced the Committee on Global Health this was important enough that the Academy should permit or should allow this workshop to be done by the Academy. And my question is, did they get did they learn, yes, it was a good idea, and is everything fine now, or will it come up as something that needs to be thought of in the future in terms of the overall policies and the issues of the Academy, such as climate change, such as healthcare disparities, such as products for orphan diseases, and those kinds of things?
Yeah, so we will definitely, after this process is wrapped up, we'll definitely convene and discuss how the workshop went as a whole. But at this point, we don't necessarily expect to continue COXI-specific activities. I think this is certainly, on our radar and certainly a topic of great interest. But our workshops, just the way that our workshops run, it's kind of piecemeal. It's very much event by event. So at this point, we don't necessarily expect that will happen, but I think we're certainly open to more activities. It's certainly within our wheelhouse.
Good. Additional questions, final thoughts?
Can we put the initial slides back up? Oh, go ahead.
Chad Dodd, Antibiotic Life Sciences. I just want to say, and maybe this is just words of encouragement, there were comments throughout the last couple of days speaking about One Health. Obviously, those of us that are in the veterinary space, we think that's really important because there's a lot we can learn from human health. But you can see here, there's great examples of how both ends of the leash, as Dr. Rob said, have an impact. I would encourage the researchers, as you continue this collaboration, it's great to see that you're working in surveillance, you're doing things together. Don't forget your veterinary colleagues, either at the universities, the College of Vet Medicine. Oftentimes we see some collaboration happen. I'm sure at Davis there's great collaboration, but in other areas there may not be. And sometimes that's just walking down the hall and having that conversation. So I would encourage all of us to continue to do that. And also on the surveillance side, think about the diagnostic companies. In human healthcare, fragmentation, but there's also consolidation, right? In veterinary medicine, we have the same thing going on. We basically have two major national labs. They have all of our serology data. They should be sharing that. So I think there's some opportunity here to continue that in that spirit of One Health. And there's some small companies championing that effort, but I think with all of us, we can probably do a better job at that. So thank you.
Good points.
Thanks.
Yeah, Jane? Jane has a...
Thanks, Jane Sykes, UC Davis. Just to follow on from that comment, thank you very much. I also just want to bring this up again. I talked about it yesterday, but on the lines of reporting, considering reporting COXI in dogs from all states as well, in addition to people, because I think, as I mentioned, they're really great sentinels for human disease.
Yeah, the Annals paper that's out specifically comments on reporting veterinary samples as well. Yeah.
I wanted to add to Jane's comment on the dogs, and I'm from Arizona, where we are awash in COXI. And I've tried on multiple occasions to get our state health department, or our state veterinary department, to make COXI reportable in animals, and I have failed over 20 years to get this done. Maybe if something came from higher up, they would figure out where to get some funds to do it. So I just wanted to say that. And also, I don't really want to beat the vaccine horse anymore, but uptake of the veterinary vaccine in Arizona, we know, is going to be very high. This costs dog owners a huge amount of money. And I mean, like I said, they helped pay for this. They want this. They're putting their money into getting a vaccine. So, and I hope the dog's a stepping stone towards people. And maybe if people see that uptake of the vaccine in dogs is making a real difference for health, it'll broaden their horizons toward uptake among themselves. So either way, I think the dog vaccine is a win. It's a real win for dogs, but it might be a real win for the human vaccine too. And let's keep it on the radar in terms of talking about the human vaccine and how to get it to market. I think the dogs help that on a lot of levels, not just showing safety and efficacy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, from what I've seen in our field over the last 20 years, this is my 20th anniversary of my very first culture of COXI. I have a picture of the plate to prove it. You know, I mean, I'm really amazed by how much our field has changed, how many new people have come into the field, how much energy there is around studying this organism. And so I think the future is bright, and I think that we have a really unique opportunity. But we're in it for the long haul, right? Like we've been here, and we're going to continue to be here, and we're going to continue to work on this organism. And so, you know, maybe we don't have a vaccine in humans next year, but we will have a vaccine in humans in this 10-year period. And I think we need to think about that long game, as many players as possible, understanding the immune system deeply, and understanding how we can have patients protected so that they aren't on lifelong antifungals. And I think that's, you know, that's everybody's goal. How we get there, you know, we'll find out. But I think we are a great community. We are a great community of researchers, of patient advocates, and I don't think we want to, you know, that's why we came to this field, right? It's an awesome community, and so I just want to give a little shout out for that.
Well said, Bridget. I will now call you every year on your Coxie anniversary. So